have with me Rosa Balfour. She's the director of Carnegie Europe. So Rosa, your work focuses on Europe a lot. So tell us, how do you think transatlantic alliance at this moment doing right now?
No, the transatlantic relationship has never been quite in such bad shape. This is the deepest, most long-standing, most integrated global relationship ever. The economy of the transatlantic relationship amounts to $9.5 trillion. That is the largest size ever in the world. And it's taking a big hit from Trump's decisions. It's not at all clear what those decisions are aiming at. There was an expectation in Europe that Trump might try to force Europe to make choices between China and the United States, but actually the irrationality of what has been done in Washington does not even suggest that. And so Europe needs to try to protect itself, and that's what it's doing. On trade, the European Union and the 27 member states that are part of the European Union, they have one person to talk to, and that is the Commission. The Commission can make decisions and represents Europe, and that means that it is in a powerful position. It has a toolbox which is ready because they've been preparing it for a long time, and they actually started preparing it during the first Trump administration, creating, for instance, an anti-coercion instrument to push back on US policies that might try to force Europeans to do things that are against their interests. It can retaliate with tariffs. It has a toolbox. At the moment, with the pause, the EU hasn't needed to activate that toolbox, but it has made clear that it can if need be.
When you talk about activating the toolbox, I want to ask you, Europe depends a lot on US for its security. Are you going to diversify that sector?
So the diversification of European security is going to be very, very difficult. In fact, what Europeans are suggesting is, number one, increasing defense spending. And this has been a long-term US ask of both Trump, but also of the Obama administration. So take greater responsibility for Europe's security. This is happening. Europeans are really rushing to increase their defense spending and finding the financial means to do so. The second thing that Europeans have offered is actually to buy more American kit, military kit, which would actually mean making itself more dependent on the US rather than less. However, it has to be said that over the past few years, since Russia invaded Ukraine, Europeans have been buying military equipment also from other countries, such as South Korea, simply because of the need to procure the right military equipment. And so they have been expanding their network of partners from whom to buy military equipment. Another thing that Europeans have already proposed to Trump is to buy more liquid natural gas, LNG, from the United States. So that, again, would increase Europe's dependence on the United States. Let's not forget that this happens in a context in which Europe has actually decoupled itself from Russian energy because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So they have sanctioned oil imports and therefore have increased the imports of LNG. So again, that would be very hard to, it would be very hard to decouple the European economy from that. But where it is trying to diversify is in reaching out to other countries to deepen trade ties, to deepen science and cooperation ties, to deepen even military ties, technological ties. And India is one of the countries that is talking with the European Union. Nearly the whole of the European Commission came to India not long ago. There is a very ambitious goal of concluding a free trade agreement with India by the end of 2025. So there's a lot happening on that front.
Just last question from my side. I want to know about the TTC between Europe and US. Yesterday, one of the panelists said that the TTC between Europe and India is far in a better position than the TTC. There's a lot of conflict, and especially when you talk about regulations. Are you going to give some sort of a rollback or going to push harder for Trump to adapt to it?
So that's a very good question, because there's been a lot of discussion in Europe about the fact that Europe has a strong regulatory approach to technology that US big tech does not really like overall. And now that big tech and the US administration seem to be quite so aligned, there has been, and JD Vance has actually said that it might want to threaten Europe and roll back on technology regulation. Some countries are cautious, like Ireland, like Germany. They point to the fact that Europe does not really have autonomous technological capacity. But at the same time, because Europe is such a big market, it can exercise some leverage. Big tech does not want to lose Europe as a market because it's such an important source of financial revenue. So I'm still wondering. I think the Commission has said it doesn't want to roll back on its technology regulation. It's about protecting citizens' rights. The whole notion and the whole principle governing regulation is that it is human-centric and rights-based. And I see a greater sign of agreement over protecting this than an agreement over giving into US threats. So jury's still out, but I do see that there are some sources of strength in the EU's argument that technology needs to be regulated in a human-centric and rights-based way.